Welcome back, YouTube. Reitzer here with Far Gaming, and in this video, I'll be giving you a tour of the Unity editor, explaining the different default panels and what they're used for. Let's start. For this demo, I'll be using my Destroy the Trees project, and for reference, I'm using 2022.3.5 F1 editor version. And here's that project opened up in Unity. In here, you'll see we have all these different panels all around the screen. All these serve a different purpose, but are very useful for game development. You can customize the layout of the panels by resizing them. You can move them around. You grab it by the tab part of the top and move them around. And you can also stack them by grabbing the name and putting it right beside another one. You can also take one and move it out into its own window, or you could close it out completely. And then to add it back, you would go up to your menu and go to Window and General. And here's where most of these default ones are. So then I can add it back. And then also up here in Window, you'll see we have all these other categories right here with a lot more panels that can be added into our Unity editor. The first panel I'm going to show you is the hierarchy over here on the left side. This is all of the objects that are currently in whatever level you have loaded. So my one level that I have right here, I have my lighting for the scene, I've got my terrain, I've got some invisible walls to keep the player from going off the edge, I've got the player, and then I've got canvas, which is my user interface. So I've got the time on the right side, I've got a menu button on the left side, things like that. In Unity, we have what are called parent objects and child objects in the hierarchy. So Canvas is a parent object to all of these different child objects because they are hierarchically stored underneath it. So right panel is the child object to Canvas. So if I turn off that child object, it only affects it and whatever children are underneath it. So like the time text and the time counter text, those are also turned off with that, but the object does not affect the parent object. If I go to Canvas and turn that off, it turns off all of the objects underneath it, but nothing else outside of it. If you're wanting to add some more game objects to your scene, you can either click this plus button up here to create different objects in your scene. If you need more UI elements, you want to add an image to the screen or some text, or if you want to add some 3D objects into your scene, like cubes, spheres, whatever, that's how you would do it, either by clicking that plus in the drop down, or you could right click in some empty space on here and add them that way. So as you may have realized already, the inspector panel on the right side is where we go to inspect our game objects from the hierarchy. So if I was to inspect the player object, I would see the transform, which is the position, rotation, and scale of the player, as well as all these other components that are attached to the player. These are different components that change the way that the player behaves in the scene, as well as if I was to go to the trees that are in the scene, they have different components attached to them that help dictate how they behave whenever you're playing the game, as well as go into the canvas and all these different UI pieces. This is where I set what the text says and what the color of it is. This is how you really tailor all of your game objects to look and feel the way you want them to in your game. The next thing we'll look at is our scene panel right here in the middle. This is where you can go in and visually build out your scene, place objects where you want them, make sure everything is turned and looks exactly how you want it. In here, you can right click to look around. You can middle mouse click to kind of pan around, which is the same thing as using this little view tool. And then you can also zoom in and out using your mouse scroll wheel. So you can come in here and just the same as I was clicking on objects on the left side over here, you can go in and click on your player. I could go in and click on individual trees and be able to manipulate them in the inspector on the right side. Additionally, I can go in and click on the player, and if I wanted to move them around, I could use these little arrows to move them. And then there's other tools here to where I could rotate the player or I could scale them. I can grab the box in the middle to scale the entire object, or if I wanted to scale them on just a single axis, I would grab one of these other ones. In addition to that, you have this little thing in the top right, which allows you to change your camera viewing style in the scene panel. So if I'm currently using like a perspective view, I could change it to more of an orthographic view. Zoom out a little bit to show you that. And then you'd click the box in the middle again to go back to the perspective. If you wanted to view your scene straight from the side, you click the Z axis, and now you're looking at it straight from the side. If you want to go to the X side or do a top-down view, you just click on the respective axis for it. One more thing I will show you is this little camera icon is called a gizmo. Certain objects that you add into your scene, they may not have a 3D object that represents them. So, like the camera, it's there, but there's no 3D object to show you that, hey, this is where the camera is in my scene, unless you've attached it to your player or something else. But otherwise, since I don't have anything else attached to it, this is what I have to represent my camera. If I wanted to get rid of that icon, there's this little button up here to control your gizmos, and I could scroll down, find the camera in the list, and then where I see the little camera icon right here, I can click to show and hide that icon. Outside of that, that is the scene panel. Next, we'll look at our project panel in the bottom left. This one is pretty straightforward. It shows you all the files or assets in your project. Every 3D model, script, texture, etc. is stored here first before it can be used and added to the scene. Now we'll move into our game panel down at the bottom. This is pretty much what your game is going to look like when you hit play. This is from the point of view of my in-game camera, which we could see is right here. That's my main camera. So you could see right here, this is what the camera sees. Same thing that's happening down here. But it's also taking into account my UI elements. So my panels and things like that are all around the edge. You could change the aspect to 4K UHD or whatever if you're targeting a specific type of resolution. Um, you could go right here and change from game to simulator, which I found to be really neat. If I was making this for an iPad Pro, that's what it would look like. You could rotate the iPad left or right, and this is what my game would look like on an iPad Pro. I could go to an iPhone 12. Sideways, it would look like that. Straight up and down, like this. Uh, Pretty neat to be able to visualize your game on different types of platforms and see, are my UI elements too large, are they too small? In my case, my UI elements are too small for an iPhone, so that's stuff I would have to take into consideration whenever I'm building the game for specific platforms. um, but yeah, overall that is the game panel. Finally, the last panel I'm going to go over is the console. This one is anytime you have errors or warnings, something going on in your game that's not supposed to, it's going to throw it in here with either a triangle or a little exclamation point, things like that to let you know, hey, this is something that's wrong with your game or something that could be better. Um, this is also really useful whenever you're debugging your scripts. If you throw a line called debug.log into your scripts, you could throw it at a certain point in there before a loop or inside the loop so that every time the loop runs, it writes something to the console. So then I can come to the console while the game is running and I can see, hey, is that debug.log being written to console? If it's not, I know that loop isn't running for some reason and I can go further and troubleshoot that. Overall, I love the console. It's super useful and has helped me pinpoint errors a lot. So, very important. That's going to be all for this video. If you learned something, I greatly appreciate a like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel and make a lot more Unity tutorial content. So if you have any suggestions, please drop them down in the comments. If you have any questions on this video, also drop those down in the comments. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one.